YouTube. So welcome to the first ever edition of Latino Nerd News, where I speak on this week's news and might give my thoughts about it, put my 2 cents in. So we're gonna do this phase by phase. I'm gonna start off with anything I missed, and then the most recent news. So that's how this is gonna work. First off, let's get started with some DC news. So, in case you haven't heard, a couple of days ago it was announced that DC are having a Harley Quinn movie in the works. Now, my thing about this is that I don't know why they would think of doing a Harley Quinn movie. Don't know why that would be a good idea, since we haven't even seen the character Harley Quinn in this cinematic universe that DC is trying to build. She's gonna be in the Suicide Squad movie that's coming out in the summer. But other than that, we don't know anything about this Margot Robbie character of Harley Quinn that is going to be in the movies. And my whole thing is that I know that Suicide Squad is definitely going to delve into her relationship with Joker, and that's great. That is great. The problem is, and from what I'm hearing, the suggestion people are giving out there are the Gotham Sirens. The problem with that, though, and as much as I'd love to see it in a movie, I'd love to see it in a movie. The problem is, Poison Ivy hasn't been introduced in this universe. Catwoman hasn't been introduced in this universe. And we don't even know if there's a Batgirl in this universe. So there's so many unknowns. And you can't say, oh, well, they're going to introduce them in this Harley Quinn movie. You can't do that. You can't do that. That's exactly the thought that went into Batman vs. Superman. Oh, we'll just have Batman and Superman, and then we'll have Batman and Superman, and then we'll introduce the rest of the Justice League, and then it'll be a quick thing, and then we can move on with the movie. No, because look how badly Batman vs. Superman did in the box office. That alone should tell you that this is a bad idea. That a Harley Quinn movie would be great. You can write it, you can get a writer and everything, but hold off to it until probably whenever Justice League is done, to be quite honest. Because me personally, I want to see Harley Quinn in Suicide Squad, but I'd also like to see, Harley Quinn in the upcoming Batman movie, because that would be a great idea. And it could work perfect. You can fit this into the idea that the Batman movie is going with, reportedly. So, in case you haven't heard, that the Batman movie is going to introduce all Batman's main villains. So that would be great, because then you can introduce Poison Ivy, you can introduce Catwoman, and then maybe introduce Barbara Gordon, who is Batgirl. Maybe introduce her as, who knows? Who knows? Who knows how you can introduce Batgirl? But you can, if you're going to introduce all the villains, set something up where you clearly see that this is after Suicide Squad. So Suicide Squad would show the relationship, show the rocky relationship that Harley Quinn and Joker have, show Poison Ivy and Harley Quinn developing a friendship, and then at some point in that Batman movie, have Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy separate from the group of villains going after Batman, and set it up somehow as like, this isn't worth their time, this is a loss, something like that, something where it's plausible that they would not go after Batman, and instead they would go off on their own and do their own thing. And you can do that with Catwoman as well. You can sorry, I almost forgot about Catwoman. You have to use this to show that they have a friendship, that they have a connection. You can't just put them together and then boom, they're friends. No, you can't do that, because where's the development? Where's the character development in that? So you can do this in the Batman movie, because if you're going to introduce all the villains, might as well work out which villains have relationships with other villains, show the relationships those villains have with Batman, i.e. Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Harley Quinn, and show how you have to make it so these three female villains can be able to separate themselves from the group of villains that are going after Batman so they can do their own thing. And then in doing a Gotham Sirens movie, because there's no other way you can Harley Quinn solo movie. There's no other way. I don't even know if it's a solo movie, but if it's a Harley Quinn based movie, you have to do the Gotham Sirens. There's no other options. There's no way you can pull off a Harley Quinn solo movie where she's by herself doing her own thing. You can't do that. Can't do that. I don't care about these goddamn feminists saying, "Oh, it's so great." No, it's not so great because we don't know any relationships that Harley Quinn has with anyone else. So that's what you have to do. You have to use, I say, at least two movies where Harley Quinn is shown. We get connected with her more because she is a fan favorite. We show her friendship with Poison Ivy and Catwoman. And then after the Batman movie, then you can set it off as somewhat of a cliffhanger where they go off into Gotham on their own while Batman is busy dealing with the rest of the villains. You send Batgirl. You introduce Batgirl. And then Batman sends Batgirl to go after Poison Ivy, Catwoman, and Harley Quinn. That way, you still have the Batman movie and reshift focus to Batman. But it is known that in the future, Batgirl's mission is to stop those three villains. Because you're not. So be patient with the Harley Quinn movie. Develop her more. Develop the rest of the villains. Develop the rest of the Sirens. Develop Batgirl. Introduce Batgirl somehow. And then you can have your movie then. So now, as we all know, Batman vs. Superman sucks. It sucks. So, but I'm a fan. Don't get me wrong. I love the movie. I love the movie in the sense that I got to see Batman as clear as day. The thing about Batman killing people, I obviously as a DC Comics fan, as a Batman fan, knew that, especially showing that trailer where we show, or not me, but DC shows Robin's suit all messed up with the Joker's stuff. So you obviously know that's Robin, and the Joker killed him. We don't know if it's Jason Todd. We don't know, but we know a Robin is dead. And the only explanation about Batman killing people is that, hey, Robin died. I lost my shit. I'm losing my shit. That's all. That's all they had to say. 30 seconds. Boom. Other than that, I did like Superman for the first half of the movie when the whole political thing. Is he with us? Is he against us? And he's really thinking about it, like, what if I'm no good for this like world? And then like, because I felt like that really dwelled into like Superman. If it kept going, realizing, hey, you know what? If I show I can do some good, then maybe they'll be wrong. And I feel like Zack Snyder missed a huge opportunity because he did show what we saw in the trailers, where Superman saving people from floods and like saves a rocket. But if he showed more of him saving people in Metropolis, like let's say there's a burglar or someone committing suicide from the top of the building, and Superman goes in and saves him, then that would have helped more. That would have shown, okay, maybe the government is pushing a little too much on Superman, and then maybe through that Superman can start defending himself. He's like, hey, listen, I'm not the bad guy. That was Zod. I was trying to stop Zod. And that's where you could have dwelled into more. So Zack Snyder really messed up there in the writing. And that's really the big problem I have with this movie is the writing. I didn't like the way Jesse Eisenberg portrayed Lex Luthor. I was hoping more of a social network type of guy. But that's another topic for another day. The reason I mentioned Batman vs Superman being so bad at the box office is because a lot of it went back to no one was running the ship at DC. So Marvel has Kevin Feige, Fox has Simon Kinberg, and DC has no one. But now they have someone. and it's John Berg and Jeff Johns. Both these men have already been working heavily, well, not heavily, but they've had their handprints on a lot of DC's movie decisions. Now, a lot of people can say for DC Comics, who Jeff Johns is the chief operating officer or something like that. He's everyone. The biggest complaint is that he wanks Batman, aka for people who don't use the word wank. He loves Batman. He uses Batman in almost all of his comics as the main hero, apparently. Now, I haven't read the most recent New 52 comics yet, but I think at least my whole thing is at least they finally have someone in control, someone who knows the comics, knows the characters, and knows what the audience, the movie audience, want. And that's what both men do. Jeff Johns is in charge of comics, and Berg is in charge of the movies. And they both work hand in hand. And now we have the co-captains of DC. Now, this is a little too late, maybe, for this phase they have. But as of right now, it looks like Zack Snyder might be directing Justice League, and that'll be his last DC movie directing it. Which is good news, in a sense, because now Zack Snyder doesn't get to inflict his will on the DC heroes. So, that's a good thing for DC. Congratulations, DC. You got your captains. Moving on to sports. The New York Knicks have reportedly hired Jeff Hornacek as their new head coach. So this is big for the Knicks because this is actually someone that is outside of Phil Jackson's coaching tree. So it's not a Brian Shaw. It's not Kurt Rambis. And it's no one, and this guy doesn't know the triangle. Now, if Jeff Hornacek sounds familiar, it's because he used to be the head coach for the Phoenix Suns. And this is the Phoenix Suns team that would always be good enough, but not too good enough to make the playoffs. So it would always finish the 9th seed or a half game behind the 8th seed or 2 games behind the 8th seed. So they'd be there, but not quite there. And this may be a really good hiring for the Knicks. Because if Phil Jackson actually lets Jeff Hornacek coach the way Jeff Hornacek wants to coach and does not force Hornacek to use the triangle, then this could actually be a really big deal. Because this entire time, everyone from ESPN, Bleacher Report, every analyst was saying Phil Jackson is going to hire someone he wants that he is familiar with because he wants to control them. I don't think Jeff Hornacek is that kind of coach. I don't think he's going to let Phil Jackson control him. And that's going to be really important because now we have a coach who's actually been a head coach before, who's been an assistant coach, who actually knows the NBA. And his system, from what I remember from his Phoenix days, is completely different than what the Eastern Conference usually sees. It's a system that usually fits against Western Conference foes. That usually fits the Western Conference style of play. And this will be very interesting to see how Kristaps Porzingis develops under Jeff Hornacek, if Jerian Grant can develop under him, and if Jerian Grant will actually become the starter. And this actually affects the Knicks going into free agency. Because now it's just, can you fit in the triangle system? It's now we can actually expand our viewpoint, because at first they had tunnel vision. So they only got players that supposedly could fit the triangle system. But now they can broaden it. And even if they don't get that one big free agent, they can get key role players, rotational players that can actually fit the system. And there's also news that the Knicks are trying to buy a late first or early second round pick. Now, me personally, I would try to dangle Kylo Quinn, maybe Langston Galloway. I don't know, Flalo if he opts in. That would be a great steal if the Knicks do that. Now, I say Kyle Quinn, Langston Galloway, or Aaron Aflalo. I don't think the Knicks are going to trade Langston Galloway. That was just me. Langston Galloway, I feel, is the shooting guard of the future. He could insert himself into the two guard position in the starting five this coming season for seasons beyond. And Jerian Grant is going to continue to develop unless Jose Calderon gets tossed in. And I didn't mention Jose Calderon as a potential fit because I don't think teams want Jose Calderon. Not for a late first, maybe for an early second, but I don't think Jose Calderon's going to be leaving anytime soon. I think if Jose Calderon's going to stay a Knick, he needs to come off the bench because he cannot keep up with these NBA point guards, especially in the Eastern Conference. I think what they need to do is give Jerian Grant the starting job, or have him earn it, not give it to him, but really work on his shooting because this guy can play defense. So if Jerian Grant's specialty is attacking the basket, develop that more, and maybe help him develop a 3-point shot. But Hornacek, I feel, is the perfect fit for him for the Knicks. That's it for this week's Latino Nerd News. Please subscribe for more Latino Nerd News and follow me on Twitter for the next time I'm throwing a video out there. I am the Latino Nerd, and I'll see you soon.